So a big welcome to all of you. This is the first in a series of 4 calls in which we'll hear from a number of organizations around the continent about their work on the ground with farmers. As you should have seen in the emails, this is part of an ongoing of sharing and learning around natural farming between AFSA and SKY's Healthy Soil, Healthy Food Initiative and the Community Natural Farming Program in Andhra Pradesh. So welcome. I see we have a number of participants from India, so a big welcome to them. This is part of this learning program with them. First, a very quick background on the Healthy Soil, Healthy Food Initiative. In 2017, AFSA hosted a training program to share experiences with biofertilizers and biostimulants from Latin America. Around 60 farmers and local NGO representatives from around the continent attended the training. Following on from this, someone on mute? Abdallah, let me just mute Abdallah. Okay. Ferdinand's here, great. Welcome, Ferdinand. I'm just giving an introduction. So around 60 farmers and local NGO representatives from around the continent attended that training in October 2017. Following on from this were training sessions in West, East, and Southern Africa in 2018 and 2019, with enthusiastic uptake by some organizations and farmers. It was with some of these organizations that AFSA and SKY went on to form the Healthy Soil, Healthy Food Initiative. Last year, but that's since we've had the COVID, so it's been very much an online initiative up until now. Hopefully that'll change this year. In 2020, we had a series of 12 calls in which we shared on a number of practices on the ground that are working towards healthy soil, healthy food. And that included a couple of presentations from Vijay Kumar of the Community Natural Farming Program in Andhra Pradesh. And then last year, the Healthy Soil, Healthy Food Initiative combined with the CNF in Andhra Pradesh to host 6 sessions, where 6 3-hour sessions, where the Community Natural Farming Program shared on the principles and practices of their program, in which they are so successfully scaling up the spread of natural farming. Now we've reached a next stage in this learning program, and that's to hear from organizations here within Africa about their implementation of natural farming agroecological practice and how it's going. In this first of 4 sessions, we'll hear from BIOGI in Western Kenya, and I hope St. Judes in Uganda, and Shashi Agroecology School in Southern Zimbabwe. As indicated in the emails, they'll share against the natural farming principles, which ones are being more successfully put into practice, and which are they finding more challenging. Each will present for up to 15 minutes, and then there'll be a chance for some clarification questions. Please use the chat to put any questions and comments. We'll capture all of these, and for those questions we don't have time to answer, we'll do our best to answer by email. And if you think we might not have your email address, then please put that in the chat too, and then we can be in touch with the group as a whole. So that's the introduction. I'll now hand over to Ferdinand, who's going to present first. Welcome, Ferdinand. Over to you.
Thank you, John, and thank you everybody who's listening to our presentation. And I just want to share my screen, John.
Great. Well done.
Okay, thank you. For those who are listening and for this opportunity. And I will have an outline for my presentation, sharing the vision for our engagement in this agroecology movement, some key features on the natural farming principles, those being promoted, those we are struggling with, and how we are struggling with that, and some of the key characteristics from our focal sites with farmers. And then some of the practices that we are taking up and moving forward. And I will also share a summary storyline with farmers on what we are doing.
Sorry, carry on, Ferdinand. That was just someone who hadn't muted.
Okay, so we see ourselves as being part of the active food movement in the wider struggle taking place around the globe, and aiming at stimulating local actions that champions transition models of peace and healthy coexistence with Mother Nature. I hope I am audible enough and that everybody is seeing everything as I'm presenting. So the screen, you should be seeing the principles being effectively promoted. And the first one is animal integration. And among the farmers we are working with, we have three categories. We have a small stock in form of goats, sheep, that should be sheep and not sheep, and poultry. In the Western region, chicken abounds, and they're actually raised on free range. And they also have a lot of traditional attachments. The sheep and goats are actually raised on tethering. And in the evenings, they are usually taken back into the kraal. We also have big stock, and these are characterized by the mixed breeds of traditional humped cattle. And some farmers also have exotic breeds and a cross between the traditional breeds or indigenous breeds and the hybrids. And the most important part with the stock or with the livestock is that there is the recycling of manure, where some farmers collect from the kraal and the heap, and there are those who spread it directly before planting. And some who do both. And we have situations where the feed leftovers are mixed with other feed remains for decomposition and later used during seasonal planting. It takes about 3 months. And that's just one of the most effective principle being promoted. And many farmers, when acquiring small livestock or big livestock, they attach a lot of meaning to the livestock in terms of recycling of manure. They realize that animal manure is very, very key in soil fertility management. The other principle that is most intensively promoted is crop diversity. And this is characterized, has about 3 characteristics. We have seasonal integration of the annuals, where there is a mixture with the staple grains, especially maize, sorghum, beans, groundnuts, cowpeas, in the same field. And we, as much as the crop diversity is taking place, we are noting a decline in the millets and the sorghums and also the bean varieties, where farmers only would be promoting 1 or 2 varieties of the millets and also of the bean varieties. Then we also have traditional leafy vegetables and tubers like clotularia, jutsmalo, spider herb, amaranth, sweet potatoes, and also wild varieties. Some of them and their use is declining, like the wild kales and cowpeas are declining. Then we also have perennial integration in plantation, where we have fruit trees, and close to the homesteads, we have the bananas, the avocados, a variety of avocados and pumpkins integrated in there. And most of the yams are actually near the water sources, because we have farmers who have their farms downstream. Then we also have tree integration and in wild areas on borders and farm boundaries, and established earthworks, structures such as swales, and some of the species there are like Sesbania, Calliandra, vetiver grass, Grevillea, and most of these trees are actually for purposes of multi-purpose. They are for nitrogen fixation. Some of their leaves are fed to the livestock, and also for fuel wood. Some of them also for fuel would actually form a source of income. And then we also have some farmers with a mix of all the above in a food forest. The crop diversity continued, just continued. The seasonal integration is also takes form of where we have, for example, maize being harvested, and cowpeas or beans still growing in the fields. And in some cases where maize is still growing, then farmers also integrate sweet potatoes. And where we have perennial integration, we are counting about 5, 7 to 9. And some of the also within the perennial integration are actually scattered. And you can, farmers can be able to pick vegetables around there, especially during the dry seasons. There are some of the principles that we are struggling with, and actually fighting, fighting, not physically fighting with farmers, but actually where most of our attention is currently focused on. Local seeds and breeds, preservation and usage. We are struggling to have this mainstreamed within the farms. And why it's a struggle is because there are competitors who are doing the industrial models. They provide subsidy to farmers. So farmers are lured towards getting some of the hybrids on loans. And then we also have a policy which restricts promotion of open seed market. So as much as farmers have the local seed, the open seed, but they cannot promote these within the local market. Even the traders who are there sell it as grains for food and not as seed. And then also there is the lost taste and preferences on indigenous food, especially by the young generation. I remember last year when we were cooking the purple maize, even some very, very aged farmers actually had never tasted the brown or pink maize. And then there's also low knowledge on the nutritional values of the local foods, and high market presence and promotion of the junk food locally. People are listening to radio, they have more access to radio and phones, and a lot of advertisements are actually promoting the junk foods, even within the villages. We have started doing some things, and we are seeing that the area of biostimulants is emerging with the new interests and opportunity, and we are integrating this with the biofertilizer trainings that we already had started some 3 years ago. And farmers are now creating spaces for experimentation and doing some comparisons. We also have had some training to farmers in Eastern Kenya on pelleting. We also have done our own at BIOGI with some farmers and done some very good harvest of the beans. Also the solid biostimulants. We've done trainings on that with farmers, and right now we have crops that are in the fields, and farmers are reporting good progress. Also the liquid sprays we have done in our fields, and we are observing, and in this coming season, we expect to make more comparisons. So some of the things have already taken root even in the communities, and farmers actually have been endeared to some of them. These are on biostimulants, and just we doing the integration of the trainings. This is going to be an area we are going to focus more beginning this year, pelleting, and we have identified 12 farmers who have now been trained, have received the initial training in Eastern Kenya. And right now I'm having 15 champion farmers just behind me here who are also part of this journey and are planning to do the March-July long season. We call it Mwika here, where we're going to now have that polyculture cropping pattern. And also we're going to use oxen. We saw in India they were using tractors, but here use of oxen is a tradition, and we want to use that on at least 1 acre each. And then I have a short video here. I hope it's going to be audible enough. I will try to explain. So those are farmers in the Makueni of Eastern Kenya when they were making the solid biostimulants, and they made that 3 months ago and have used that, and we're getting reports that they're doing very well. Crops are still in the field, and we've not yet assessed the yields. Yeah, it was so exciting for them as they were doing this work, and one thing they observed is that this is going to be very easy because it only takes about 5 days, and they can be able to store solid balls. So these are our trial gardens, where we are using bokashi, and at the same time also using the low practice. And that is 2 months after doing the planting. Right now it's a dry season. We are also doing a lot of mulching, and these are cowpeas and tolaria integrated, and on the edges of pumpkins. So this is an example of an existing polyculture system within our trial farms, and we have about 9 crops here. She used to buy chemical fertilizers, but she was not realizing yields that she was expecting. But right now, she's now learning these biofertilizers and using the biostimulants, and she's seeing these as a journey worth taking.
Okay, thanks so much for that, Ferdinand. And we've got 10 minutes or so just to share any clarification questions. I see there are a couple in the chat. There was one about the animal manure and what sort of size hectares are people working, what number of hectares are people working on, and how many cattle in the crawls. That was one question. And another question was, does the diversity principle, following that and having many species, is that causing a problem with disease management? Any problems with disease management? So those are the 2 questions. Yeah, thanks. That was great. That was really interesting to see. I mean, you chose animal integration and crop diversity as the two that you're really moving forward successfully with. But go ahead with those questions.
Yes. In Western Kenya, we are dealing with farmers who have less than 2 acres of land. And majority of them is actually 1 acre. So that having animal manures integrated in these fields it's not a big problem. Only that the form in which it is applied, before now they learned this, was seen to be a problem. But as we interacting with farmers and doing, for example, the solid biostimulants, they are seeing that it's doable because they can even use the balls per hole when they are doing the work. And here in Western Kenya, during planting season, it's a family business. It's not, and you can have your friends and your neighbors joining in to do the work. That's the good part of that. And then with the diversity, we have observed that when the soil is well fertilized, actually the incidences of diseases become very minimal. And we have observed in the ecosites that we have that we rarely do the spraying with the biopesticides. And when we correct soil fertility, we see that actually the incidences of pests and even the diseases very, very, very minimal. And we're only seeing incidences of pests and diseases in the fields where farmers are doing the hybrids and where they are having maybe a monocrop of, let's say, tomato and maybe other hybrids. Otherwise, for the indigenous varieties, we're seeing lots of disease tolerance. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much for that, Ferdinand. Just a reminder to those, including me, to go on mute if you're not speaking. Any more questions from anyone you'd like to ask verbally, or any comments you'd like to make before we go on to the next presentation? I see we have a number of colleagues from India with us. One of the ideas is that they'll be participating in all these sessions, hearing about people's successes and challenges with implementing the 5 principles. And then we hope to have a session after these 4 with them, with our colleagues from India, for them to be able to respond to all of what they've heard. We're hoping to have 12 organizations present, and then they'll get a good spectrum of what's happening. Go ahead, Chika from Brussels. Chika, please go ahead, unmute and go ahead, and then Anna.
Thank you. I simply want to draw attention to the question in the chat that I'm also interested in. We can consider explaining a little bit more the component of the biostimulant. Somebody asked the question, and I'm keen in knowing too.
Okay, great. I mean, we will, out of all of this process will come some documentation, and in all of that will be included a lot of the different sort of recipes that people are using in the biostimulants. But maybe, Ferdinand, you could just give an example of one that you're using, just a quick overview of what's in them, just to give people a sense. Go ahead.
Thank you. That is, I mean, for me, it's just still fresh in the mind because that's what I've been doing this morning with some of the farmers, just to review. One of them, we call it the solid biostimulant. And the recipes are, we have 100 kilograms dung, fresh cow dung. We have 10 liters of cow urine. And then we have 2 liters of jaggery, or in our case, we are using molasses, and you can also use sugar. And then 2 kilograms of pulse flour. In our case, we are using bean varieties that sometimes people maybe have very low preference for them. And this is a very good source of protein. So the recipes are mixed, and you make them into balls. You also will need a handful of soil, good soil from the garden or from the forest that is not contaminated. And these are mixed and made into balls, just like what you saw in the short video. Then they are let to dry for 5 days. And then when you are planting, you can spread them in your planting holes or in your drills. And in our case, the farmers prefer just putting the balls in a hole where they are planting either the maize or the beans, or sprinkling them, breaking them down and into the drills, into the furrows, and planting their beans, their maize, or whatever they are planting. So that's just the short maybe description of one of the biostimulants.
Great, thanks. And Matt's put it in the chat for you. I hope that gives you an idea, Chika. We did share with those in India what they're using, and then there are other biofertilizers and biostimulants, that various recipes that people are using. And I think one of the points I would add to what Ferdinand's saying is that particular one, that main aim is not a fertilizer as such. It's more of a inoculating microbes, inoculating the soil with microbes to really bring back soil life. So, JK, how are they collecting the cow urine? Quick one on that, Ferdinand, just before we move on to the next.
Yeah, the animals actually rest at night. We make a small tunnel, and then outside the building, you make a small hole and put a jerry can in there, or a pot, so that normally at night the animal would be able to pass urine about 2-3 times, and you would collect about 5 liters there very easily every morning.
Great, thanks for that. Don't worry, Jekasai, and no questions are too silly. You said it sounds silly. Great, thanks so much, Ferdinand. I've been lucky enough to visit Ferdinand and BIOGI and Vihiga County quite a few times, and the work going on there really is fantastic. And some of those food forests, I mean, there's one farmer in particular that Ferdinand works with.
He's here, he's right here.
He's here, okay, wonderful, fantastic. He is an incredible farmer. Okay, thanks, Ferdinand. That's a great start to these sessions. Let's move on now to Nelson. Nelson, are you ready? I hope your connection's strong enough. Would you like to go ahead and share your screen? It should be fairly straightforward, and it's over to you. Nelson's from southwest, sort of southern Zimbabwe, a drier part of Zimbabwe. Go ahead, Nelson.
Thank you very much, John. I will start by sharing my screen. Let me try. Okay.
Yeah, it's coming. Yeah, it's there. Yeah, and you've got it on full.
You can
full
see
view.
the screen.
Yeah, perfect.
Yes.
Thanks so much. It's clear.
Yes. Just to start with, I'm a farmer in the Shasha block of farms, where we were resettled some years back, back 2000, and this area was formerly just for cattle ranching, and it's actually in region 4 that receives an annual
Okay, so
if the season is very good, it's just some 400 millimeters of rain. And we have around 500 farmers that were resettled in the block of farms. These farmers were just coming from the different areas, now coming into the forest. Was a
Nelson?
very big challenge for them because this area was just initially
Nelson?
for cattle ranching, and it was lots of trees and lots of grasses. So we needed now to set up some kind of a direction to how all the agriculture was going to be practiced. Then within it, we were quite fortunate enough to choose our idea. Hello? Hello?
Yeah, I was just going to say, maybe switch off your video because it's cutting a little bit. It might help the connection if you switch your video. Welcome.
John, can I offer to call Nelson so that he can email you his presentation?
That would be great. Thanks so much, Precious.
All right.
That's very kind. Please do that. In the meanwhile, let's be a bit flexible and go to Josephine Kiza in Uganda, near Masaka.
Let's start Daniel is starting, and then we can use ours to show.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Daniel from St. Jude Family Projects. I'm joining the team to actually make our presentation from St. Jude. I hope I'm clear.
Yeah, we're hearing you clearly. Go ahead.
Oh, yes. St. Jude Family Projects, as concerns natural farming, we've been able to engage in a number of activities, and most of the methods that we use in this process, all through the 9, we follow through the 9, but basically we have some that we've done so well, and those where we are trying to pick up. But first and foremost, one of them that we are really doing well is crop cover. We've really performed when it comes to crop cover and also biostimulants. So I'm going to go through all these, how we've been able to, to implement these amongst the farmers we train as St. Jude Family Projects, and also all through our farm as a setup. So first and foremost, St. Jude Family Projects has engaged farmers all through the 25 years and plus. And we've been able to deal with farmers from all walks of life. We've been able to see them go through.
The Zoom gods are not with us today. Daniel, we seem to have lost you. I don't know if it's only me. Have others lost him?
Yeah, I can't hear him either, John.
Yeah.
Okay. So we seem to have lost both our speakers.
The perennials, including trees and all the likes. So through the crop diversity thing, we've been able to calculate, we've been able to deal with crops that basically grow for a shorter period of time, because that's what most of our farmers that we deal with are finding easy, due to the fact that food security is a problem in Uganda. We are in a country whereby food is not that very much. We are now lying in a corridor. For example, Masaka is lying in a dry corridor. So we find that it is a problem if at all we don't teach our people how to conserve or how to grow crop varieties that are going to be of matter. What are these? Some of these, when we are planting or we are dealing with these farmers, we always tend to train them based on permaculture principles or based on natural agricultural farming methods or natural farming as a whole. I was so happy to get engaged in a training in India when I was still in India, where a farmer was practicing zero budget natural farming. Zero budget natural farming, to any farmer who is not really well versed, can think that maybe it's a joke, but it's actually true. Because when someone cuts short on the expenditure, yet conserves the environment and gets to come out with profits at the end of the day, without necessarily having to spend a lot of money on implements, tractor implements, things to do with fertilizers, more so synthetic fertilizers. And then they concentrate more on using organic natural fertilizers to cut short the cost, alongside implementing systems that are going to actually conserve the environment, especially the microbial data that lies in the soil. So our aim has always been looking at the soil, feeding it the right way,
just to remind you of while we're waiting. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to remind you of the 9 principles that they are presenting against. So it's the crop cover, aiming towards having 365-day green cover, crop diversity, including at least 8 to 12 species in any one cropping area, no low till, that's self-explanatory, integrating animals, using biostimulants to speed up microbial life returning to soils, using mulches seems to be a really critical principle for natural farming, using local and traditional seeds, pest management, understanding pests and getting them at their weakest point, and then avoiding all chemicals.
But then we are performing well in crop diversity and biostimulants. Why? Because with crop diversity, we are having as many crops intercropped within a system. For example, the permaculture site that we have on the farm itself is really performing so well because we are having over 10 crop varieties in one area, just one small area. And these are all, intercropped together. They have a symbiotic relationship between themselves. You find that they are helping. Each crop that is planted on the farm has, in one way or another, it has a way it is helping the other crop to actually survive. On top of that, it also helps the soil thrive, because if the plants are planted in the right way, if you have a diversity of crops within one area, in one way or another, these crops, we have those that actually are very good at siphoning lost phosphorus into the soil and then bring it back. For example, the Grevillea trees that we have intercropped in the permaculture site, those are very good as a phosphorus sink. Then we have nitrogen fixing plants, for example, the beans and all that stuff. These have really been helpful in helping the soil retain its nitrogen. The lost nitrogen is retained within the soil, on top of using biofertilization, like I will explain in the coming PowerPoint. So we really have used this methodology of crop biodiversity or crop diversity, even through our farming systems as we deal with the extension farmers that we are always talking with, we are always engaging practically. We always ensure that they have this crop diversity implemented or added as a system on their farms. Because at the end of the day, you find a food secure community that can easily come up with food forests that have almost each and everything they need to actually survive. So with food security ensured, we've seen really, this as a system that has been very, very much instrumental amongst the rural farmers. Then we have biostimulants. Biostimulants, basically we are basically dealing with biofertilizers. We've used a number of biofertilizers on the farm to actually help us keep the fertility of the soil intact. How? By trying as much as we can to use cheap available biofertilizers to the farmers themselves, but even to ourselves, to make sure that the farmers can still farm despite of not having much money at hand. So things like bokashi, we must produce that amongst the extension farmers that we deal with. As you go down, you'll see one photo where we are mass producing that in the extension, in the centers of excellence that we've actually set up. We have different centers of excellence that we have set up in the communities, and we are using them to actually help farmers to produce as a group and be able to cut short on the costs. Then we have biofertilizers. Sorry, I lost you. I'm back. Yeah,
okay.
So I was explaining about the seed banking and that is what we've been able to do through the communities we work with. We are trying to promote indigenous seed varieties, especially the bean seed, because beans are really important in the menu or in the nutrition aspect of Uganda as a country. So many indigenous seed varieties have been promoted. We desist from using GMOs, we desist from using any chemicals, we desist from using any type of seed that is hybrid. We always concentrate more on the indigenous seeds, and we've been going through all these areas where we work, trying as much as we can to collect or to actually collect all these indigenous seeds from farmers and then try to multiply them. Because of time, I wasn't able to attach our new seed bank and what we are dealing with, but I was able to visit BIOGI, and I know what Mr. Ferdinand and Mr. Nderitu from GBIAC have done, and how they have been able to impact their communities using seed. So copying an example from them, we are able to come back as St. Jude, because there is a project we are on, the KCOA project with Mr. Ferdinand and Mr. Nderitu. And we've been able to actually use this same knowledge back here, and we've kick-started off the seed banking that we've learned from these areas, because it's all about learning from one another. So we've been able to implement that. The Bokashi biofertilizers, like I said in the next photograph down, we are able to deal with communities, but on a level of having them produce their own cheap, option to what all these synthetic biofertilizers would do. All these synthetic biofertilizer, this synthetic mass-producing biofertilizer, and most of the farmers are finding it easy to use these biofertilizers like Bokashi, Spamagro, using what we would call as bio, and all these chili pest, chili, liquid biopesticide that farmers are actually using to actually address, or solve problems that would have necessarily needed the use of inorganic biopesticides and inorganic biofertilizers, which we desist from actually doing. And we are happy to report that most of the farmers are picking it up so fast that they are finding it as a readily available option for their use in their own homesteads to protect the soil and the environment, alongside feeding themselves in a cheaper and more safe way. Then when we go down, you'll see one photo we've shared whereby we are talking of biodiversity. Most of our farms, sorry, that is the video, but when you go all the way down, yes, most of the farms that we are actually setting up, we are using the push-pull technology or technique to actually set up farmsteads that are stable. Why? Because by doing this, we are able to address the problem of pest management on farms, and why pests should be actually, fought in an organic way, not in an inorganic way. Because we have a problem of having many farmers around us who are using heavily depending on chemicals. And so to prevent these farmers from actually affecting us, we are putting up systems in place whereby farmers can easily learn from us and then take back home. Of course, it is a journey. It's a journey. We don't expect them to learn from, just within a day, because mindset change is also a factor. But again, still, we expect them to actually appreciate the fact that slowly by implementing such systems, a farmer can actually come to realization that the use of these systems that are natural can actually help them, protect the soil, protect the environment, and in the long run, feed themselves alongside making money. So that's one thing that we've been able to promote over the years. When we go back to the video, which I don't know if time really permits, because we've been going off and on, but this video talks about the biofertilizers we deal with. And I don't know if the volume will really come up. I know we had earlier challenges.
I think it's, Daniel, I don't think the video has been downloaded here, so I don't think it's possible on that one.
Yeah.
But it's not a problem, I don't think. But
no.
Great, fantastic. Thanks so much, Daniel, for that.
Thank you very much.
It's given us a good taste. So what I'm going to do now is that I'll share the screen and present it's self-explanatory, the one from Nelson, and then we'll end up any more questions and discussion we can have.
Thank you, John, for your help.
Thanks, Josephine. Thanks, Daniel. Please stay on, because there may be questions for you.
No problem.
I'll just run through this presentation from a much drier zone than the first two, which is, as Nelson said, is in region 4. We have a region 1 to 5 in Zimbabwe. Region 5 is the driest, so it's in a dry part of Zimbabwe. The whole issue of climate change, big loss of biodiversity, soil fertility, damage, declining, especially in this one rainy season climate, where as soon as you plow, the organic matter oxidizes very quickly and you go down to less than 1% in most soils. The levels of household nutrition is declining. So that's a bit of contextual background. So the two principles which they're most effectively putting into practice in Shashe is the crop diversity, including trees, including at least 8 to 12 species, and then integrating of animals, having livestock as an integral part of the farming system. So a little bit more on that, just to help the translator, the interpreter. Our vision is to see increased diversity at every household. We measure that at seed and food fairs, where each household is supposed to show the number of seed varieties that are growing on the family farm. When preparing best farmer field days, we do visits to every registered farmer such that we are able to see the varieties that each farmer is growing and many other agroecology practices. We're promoting intercropping of at least 2 crops per plot that we know can benefit from each, like beans and maize, where beans can fertilize, provide nitrogen to the soil, and maize can benefit from that nitrogen. Other intercrops could be runners, such as pumpkins, to provide a green mulch. On the family farm, crop diversity is determined by the family needs, what we want to eat and for how long. Trees usually are grown on contours. However, fruit trees can intercrop with crops such that when they work the crop, they also do the same to the trees. Integrating animals. We practice agroecology where we believe that animals are useful tools on the family farm. We converted once cattle ranching farms to food forests, majoring on livestock production. So that's Shashe. Shashe used to be a cattle ranch. It's now it's a resettled farming area. Animals have different roles they play on the farm: meat, manure, income, milk, draft power, rituals, gifts, rora, that's bride price, most important, trembling the soil, so impacting the soil to break soil capping, so using the hooves of livestock to break open. It's a big problem in this part of the world where you have soil that goes like concrete and the water just runs off. It needs to be broken open. So using the hooves of livestock to break open capped soil, and chickens eating pests in the garden and also fertilizing the soil. So anything we've taken up as a result of the sessions? So no low-till, keeping tillage discernment to a minimum, ideally not at all. That's one of the principles of we've not taken up. So these are the sort of more difficult principles. So one of them is no low-till. So smallholder farmers still believe that land must be tilled to collect as much moisture as possible. I think the colleagues in India were saying also that that's a difficult principle for farmers to implement because of that deep-seated belief of needing to plow. The size of the land requires farmers to till with a plow instead of a hoe. And then the other difficult one and not to take up is crop cover, aiming towards having 365-day green cover. The size of the arable land demands a lot of mulch that is not readily accessible. So finding enough mulch, that came up in discussions in our sessions last year. And green cover crops usually dry in winter, and termites feed on the mulch all the time. So that's another one that's difficult. And just to remind you that our Indian colleagues will be watching all the presentations, and then after that we'll hear from them their reflections on what they've heard. So that then is the presentation from Nelson, an overview. I'm not sure if Nelson's back. I don't think he could make it. We've had very, I shouldn't say bad weather because a lot of rain, but a lot of turbulent weather, and connections in Zimbabwe have been more difficult, and he got cut off. So let's move to any questions or comments. There was one about, Peter was asking, and maybe Ferdinand, you can think about it, was wanting to know a little bit more about the biostimulant balls and how many do you apply and so on. And then there's another question from Francois. Which recommendations should be addressed to donors for subsidies to promote agroecology? I don't know if anyone would like to respond to that. I think it's a good question. I don't know if you want to say something about it, Francois, recurrent question for all presenters. Are these principles applied in relatively small plots, such as food forests or gardens, or over the entire farm? Ferdinand or Daniel, would you like to respond to that one? And also the biostimulant balls one.
Yeah, I think we are responding to challenges on green revolution or industrial agriculture that has been with us for a very long time. And many farmers were hooked to that system. And it may not be easy to just start a new concept or something like this, the whole farm. I think there is an aspect of demonstrating and showing that this works. Two, there's also an aspect of relating what the farmers were used to do, some of the traditional practices, and integrating this with modern science through ecology, understanding ecology and the challenges that we currently are having with our farming systems and our food systems. So I think with that background, we are developing or forming a foundation for transition. Yeah, so that these trainings and these sharings should be seen within that light.
Great, thanks, Ferdinand. I think you might have another device connected, so it's giving a bit of an echo.
Yes, I'll put it off.
Okay, great. Do you want to say just quickly on the biostimulant balls, how do you apply them and when and so on?
Yes, once they're dried, the size is just a handful, like a tennis ball, just a handful. If you put your hands together, I may just demonstrate. If you put your hands together like this, I mean, you make that ball, and once they are dry, the practice here in Kenya, and I think in the larger parts of East Africa, is that they use the hand hose when they are planting, so that as you dig a hole, you put a ball, you dig a hole and put a ball. That is one method. And the second method is that you can crush the balls because they will have dried. If you are using the furrows to do your planting, and then you spread them within the furrows. When we were learning from our friends in India, I think they were saying that for them, they just broadcast because the purpose is to inoculate your soil. And what we observe here with the farmers is that, well, whether we talk about inoculation before actually the soil gets the right conditions so that the microbes can be able to work and interact with the crops, these are seen all as sources of natural fertilizer, which is still good. So they still want to just use it with that mindset on replacing the synthetic fertilizers, so that this is replacing the other. I think it will take us some time as we keep on training and interacting to understand the concept of inoculation. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Ferdinand. And just one quick one on the crop diversity. Is it in rows or broadcast? People planting it in rows or broadcasting?
It's a mixture of both. For some vegetables, especially traditional vegetables and very tiny ones, many of them are just broadcasted. And for the maize and the millets and the sorghum, these are done in rows. And within even the rows, there's some broadcasting in between the rows. So there's a mixture of both.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. And some people are asking about whether the slideshows will be shared. So they will be shared. We'll make sure you get shared, as well as the link to the recording of the call. Yeah, Precious is also raising a point in the chat about the difficulty for farmers with no tillage and the issue of weeds and weeding. So it definitely is a principle. I mean, it's especially where you have drier climates, the no-till becomes all the more important because the tillage oxidizes all the organic matter. So it's a real tough one, but I think we have to find the way forward with that. And there are some people managing to do that. Anyone else? Matt's saying it would be good to dig into the no-till question. Yeah, we will. We'll also pick up themes out of this. The idea is that we get this cross-section of presentations from across the continent and see what people are succeeding with, what they're struggling with, what they're doing on the ground. And then we'll take it forward, keep taking it forward from there. So we're really sharing practice on the ground. Any more questions from anyone? Any more comments?
Maybe a short one. John?
Go ahead, Daniel, John. That's you, although it's not a picture of you, yes. But go ahead.
Yes. Maybe a short one. One cross-cutting factor, or one factor that will always actually, you'll find actually coming up all the time, will be a factor of mindset change. There is need for people to really, we really need to do more work when it comes to engaging communities and helping people understand fully what they're dealing with. You find that we are in competition with most of the synthetic companies, most of the companies that are trying to, of course, promote, this large scale agriculture, industrial agriculture and factory farming. So the only way we can beat them hands down, so we can promote a system that really works, is by going down to the grassroots, meeting the people, talking to them, implementing with them, working with them, and showing them the benefits that go alongside natural farming, benefits that come with organic farming, benefits that come with agroecology and all the related, fields. Unless until we really, go down to the grassroots and engage them and work with them, engage them to really see this thing working as a team, there is no way we are going to see this come through. And it has been shown all through. I mean, people have tried many times to get these systems working and whatsoever. But unless until we connect with the grassroots, there is no way. So maybe that's one other thing that really comes in handy. The mindset change. People's mindset has to be really, people need to be encouraged so they can actually understand that it really works. But you find that most of the organizations that we work with, most of the governments are putting most of the emphasis in producing enough food using inorganic methods. So producing enough food using synthetic systems, which in the long run has been able to catch up with people's health, and people have not been able to really see sense in this over the years. Though it is cheaper, but it's expensive in the long run. So there's that issue that needs to be worked upon.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, Daniel, that mindset change. I must admit, I mean, I've been involved in this for 40 years plus, and I find that I also have to challenge myself in my own mindset. And I've kind of realized over the last few years that I was still stuck in a mindset that needed changing in terms of particularly what's possible if one really goes the natural farming route. It's not easy to transition to it, but the potential is much bigger than I'd ever thought. And I mean, talking about 8 to 12 species, I remember sort of 10, 20 years ago, we were talking about 2 or 3 species intercropped. So I think what some people are doing, like some of the farmers that Ferdinand's working with, certainly with some of the farmers you're working with, what they're doing in India, where they're achieving this huge diversity, and at the same time the production is amazing. And I think so. I think important to do that. I'm just looking which are the best ways to improve sandy soils and dry areas. For Beatrice in Tharaka Raidep, that's huge question, Beatrice. I think we can carry that forward with us. But I think the point is that the principles apply to any kinds of soil, any kind of situation, but they need to be applied in a different way in different areas. So they're very, very context specific. I think that's an important point about natural farming. As they say in the program in India, the farmers are the experts. You have to be the expert on your own farm because only you know that farm. So here's another Matt's put in a YouTube. So if any questions or issues that have come up in the chat and they haven't been answered, we'll try and do that on email. We're getting to the end now. Any colleagues in India, any quick words from you in terms of anything that has been striking for you, or any comments from anyone before we wrap this first session up?
John, this is Josephine.
Okay, go ahead, Josephine.
For those working with the women, especially in this type of work, I think the no-till has something to do with the cultural beliefs also. Adding to what Daniel said, mindset change. When I tried to introduce this system, do you know what? The ladies told me, here in Africa, women have to dig and then you show your one neat work that you've done. And they believe that when they see this no-till, they think it is shabby, it is laziness. You know, they brought up a number of issues why they don't think it's really worse. And so it takes time for people to change also the cultural beliefs of different communities. I think my other colleagues.
Thanks, Josephine. That was very clear coming through. Yeah, it's that mindset again. It's you're not farming if you don't plow kind of approach. Okay, so if there are no further questions, Precious is agreeing with you, Josephine. I think we'll bring this to an end. So one last chance. Any questions or comments from anyone? Okay, great. So thanks very much for joining, and apologies for some of the hitches. We'll try and make sure that doesn't happen next time, but I think we managed in the end to have some good sharing around those principles that seem to be working and those principles that people are struggling with. And in 2 weeks' time, we'll have another 3 organizations who will be sharing. We'll share emails about which organizations those will be. So we've got 3 more sessions like this every 2 weeks at the same time, each time. And we'll have 3 organizations sharing on the same themes. Which principles are they managing to more successfully put into practice, and which principles are they struggling more with and having more challenges? And we'll keep sharing around that, and let's end there, shall we? So thank you very much and have a good day. And we'll see you hopefully in 2 weeks' time. And please tell anyone else who you think might be interested. And we will be sharing the recording, and we'll be sharing the slideshows. So you'll be able to see those as well. Okay, great. Thanks very much, everybody. Have a good day. And see you in 2 weeks. Bye then.
John, merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Fidel. Merci beaucoup. Thanks, Ludo, for the translation.
Thank you
Je suis contente que ça soit bilingue aujourd'hui. Si c'est comme ça tout le temps, John, bravo.
Bravo. Merci beaucoup, Fidel. Merci beaucoup.